Namaskar. I welcome you to Let's Talk with Tinat, Atifa, Masood, and today I have a very special guest with me. In this particular show, I try to bring you people who have been doing extraordinary work in their lives. And this particular show is brought to you by the Bettycrom Group. আমি যেতিয়া ব্যতিক্ৰম নামটোৱে শুনো হেতু নামতে এটা শব্দ সোমাই আছে ব্যতিক্ৰম means extraordinary, the extraordinary kind of work that people do. That is what we try to bring you through this particular show. Let's talk with Tinat, Atifa, Masood. And today I have with me a very special person, very close to my heart, somebody who's been my mentor, somebody who's been a friend, a brother, and much more. He's a family person as well. He is Dr. S.I. Ahmed. A very warm welcome to you today.
Thank you very
Munuka
much.
I call you Munuka and Dr. Ahmed. Thank you from the Bettycrom family for coming and joining us today.
Thank you, Bettycrom family.
Thank you. Thank you. So you are the chairman and the medical director of AIDS Prevention Society. That's amazing because you have been doing extensive work through this particular society. I have known that, and you are a pioneer in a person who has done extensive work with AIDS patients, with research work on AIDS and HIV-AIDS, and you have been doing extensive work with truckers as well. Because as far as I remember one thing, when I was doing a documentary way back, that was somewhere in, I think in 1998 or something like that, and you had helped me a lot with data, with a lot of extensive data. I had gone down to the truckers, I'd met them, and the kind of work you had been doing for AIDS prevention. So please tell us, I mean, let's start from the very beginning of Dr. S.I. Ahmed's education. You had been educated at the Dibrugarh Medical College, right? And
Yes.
Let's start from there.
Well, it's a long history actually, you know. It's about 1977 I graduated from Assam Medical College and I went to England for further study.
Okay.
Then I returned back to India at a time when it was the height of the Assam agitation. It was in 81, 82. And then I started my clinical practice and I found that a lot of people, especially those economically disadvantaged people, daily wage earners, they found a lot of difficulty in accessing to health cares. And so we started a charitable clinic. And those days, you know, in 1984, we started a clinic in Ambari and we formed an NGO, Assam in Dadia.
Okay.
We started a nurses training school and clinic and we were helped by that time the Chief Minister of Assam, Sehita Sarasaikia. And then gradually, you know, in 1985, actually in 81, Lord Manson, my external examiner in Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, where I did my post-graduation, he suggested that if I'm interested in studying immune deficiency, because those days in 81 they were publishing a lot of immune deficiency diseases in the Lancet.
Okay.
Then I said, no, I didn't have much idea about that. Then he said, if you want to take up study, you should go to the NIH. He suggested that. In 85, I had the opportunity to be in the US at the NIH. And you know, NIH has got a fantastic person, Professor Robert Gallo. Actually, he's the discoverer of HIV. And I had the opportunity of attending some of the HIV lectures there, and then visiting Washington, D.C. at the Whitman Walker Clinic, the SHOW project. So I was quite attracted to it. So I started my practice, and in 89, the two things I was doing: research, study on HIV on one hand. The other hand, giving the scientific research studies, the outcomes and the successes, transferring it to the real population in the street level. Okay. How we could do that, how science could help the people at the street level, you know. There were a lot of drug users. Drug user is a serious issue, injecting drug users. Because in 89, when ICMR established NICED in Manipur, they detected that a lot of drug users were there who were using heroin intravenously. And because of that, they wanted to study whether HIV could be one of the causes and could lead to one of the result of this sharing of injecting needles. So 86, one of my colleagues, Dr. Sunita Solomon, discovered HIV among the sex workers in Chennai. That
Okay.
was the alarm bell in India.
All right.
And in the Northeast, 89, Sarup Sarkar, Dr. Paul and the company in NICED in ICMR detected the first HIV among the drug users. So I was, because of my experience in 85, I was asked to do a study on the drug user scenario also in Assam, Meghalaya and other places. We found that, yes, this was a serious issue. And we did a lot of intervention. Government of India has given us one of the first intervention program, harm reduction, and along with Manipur, Nagaland, we did the intervention program to reduce the incidence of HIV among drug users by having safe harm reduction programs.
Okay.
And that was how it all started.
Okay, wow, that's nice. But you have been doing extensive work in Assam itself, and I remember because when I had gone down to meet these truckers, that was in Beltola area. You had sent me there, and you said that go find out what these guys are doing, and then I went and I was interviewing them. They mentioned you. They said that yes, he has been the one who has been teaching us on many issues. Like I think you put up documentaries as well out there.
Yes. Actually, that was one of the first studies in the country. The behavior pattern of HIV and the truckers we did with the injecting drug users and with the sex workers in Assam. So these behavioral studies were actually the beginning in almost in the Northeast.
Okay.
And this trucker study actually initiated Government of India to take a multiple halt point studies throughout the country. Yes, we did a lot of work on that front. And then in 89, 90, when we discovered HIV among the drug users, there was a national lot of programs on how to reduce HIV among the drug users. And
Okay.
we took a lot of the rapid assessment studies in several states. Then we formed the organization called Northeast India Harm Reduction Network. So we had about 70 organizations as partners throughout the Northeast. And of course, projects with truckers, with sex workers, with students, with women's groups, and of course having different studies done with substitution for drug users. So a lot of work has gone into it. And
in fact, for the truck drivers, you had initiated things like giving them free condoms, because that was that area, that Beltola area that we were talking about. I think that area was like full of it was rampant with sex workers. So I think you also distributed, your organization was one of them, I think.
yeah, we actually did a lot of intervention there. One is the early diagnosis of STDs,
All right.
treatment through 3 different routes of having a static health centers, training the pharmacists to treat, and also mobile clinics. And I was invited to present the studies of the 3 modes in an international conference in Geneva.
All right.
And we played it to the UN that how these some high-risk taking behavior groups can be interacted with an intervention. And we successfully did that, I think, that programs.
So what do you think? I mean, I feel that this drug abuse that's happening, because it's very, very rampant in the Northeast, exceptionally rampant. And I know of a couple of people who I personally knew, and I wanted to get them into rehab, but then they were not willing. A lot of families were destroyed. What is your opinion about that?
It's a massive issue. If you ask me in the last 40 years what I have seen, I mean, it's an international issue actually.
Yes.
And it's a big issue even in the US, in Mexico, Colombia, and Southeast Asia, of course, And the two drugs, one is heroin, it's opioid, and the other is synthetic methamphetamine type substances, amphetamine type substances like yaba, they call it. They had the labs across in Myanmar, and many of the heroin that were being produced had needed precursors like acetic anhydride. They were coming from India.
Okay.
So now two things are very alarming for us actually. Now you see there have been large scale, illegal drugs have been caught, and
Recently,
government
yes.
is taking very proactive decision, which
Yes.
is very good. But actually, at the same time, there has to be coordination between the entire northeastern states in
Yes,
this.
yes.
I would call that Chief Minister is doing a great job by very proactively acting against the war on
Very
drugs.
commendable work.
Work on against
Very.
drugs.
Yes.
But to take it further, because now the danger is what? Methamphetamine, crystalline were manufactured across the border in Myanmar and smuggled in.
Okay.
But now the danger is that in Manipur itself, they have started having small labs,
Oh,
which
goodness.
are manufacturing.
That's scary.
Yeah, it's scary. There was just about 2-3 months back, I think, about 2,000 crores of yaba were, seized. And these people are taking like a kind of unemployment and making it a cottage industry, If these are the things they take up to, the production is not very expensive,
Right.
but that gives them big yields, in the international market because these are banned. So what actually happened, we went, the UN has sent us for a study of methadone substitution in Hong Kong.
Okay.
Government-run clinics. There are about 23 methadone clinics. Methadone is banned in India. When we had the Undersecretary General Peter Pio coming to Guwahati, so he started that, how about substitution with buprenorphine? So Government of India and Ministry of Health and the British DFID actually sent a team to do a feasibility study of buprenorphine in India in Punjab. So actually I went to Punjab, to 5 districts in Punjab
Okay.
to do the study. And we found, yes, because of their proximity to the Golden Crescent, Pakistan, through a lot of drugs coming to Punjab.
That Golden Crescent is also the Golden
Yes.
Triangle
No,
that
no,
we talk
Golden
about?
Triangle is in
towards the
Thailand.
Myanmar, to Thailand and
Yeah.
yes,
If
yes.
you go, I've been to the Golden Triangle through...
Okay, so this Golden Crescent is different.
Different.
It's-
No, Golden Triangle is in Myanmar, Thailand and Laos.
Okay.
This is a Cambodia. This is a different place. This is, I traveled sailing by the Mekong River in
Wow.
several stages.
Okay.
But what I found is the opium fields are no longer existent now. They have shifted to China. And that market is gone now. They have set up different kind of nightclubs and casinos and all that places,
All right.
And I crossed over to Cambodia and I found out that this area has changed over the years. But Golden Crescent,
So
Afghanistan,
this
Pakistan.
golden triangle that you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
So you mean to say that the
Opium
drug,
cultivated.
the opium and the drug thing is no longer rampant out there?
No, now it is much reduced because the market, the opium fields have now shifted. They've gone
Okay.
into China. Now in the Mekong River, if I take the boat and go there,
Okay.
I will not find those opium fields which we saw before.
Oh, but that's heartening news. I mean, if the thing has gone down.
No, it's not gone down. They are manufacturing somewhere else. Their opium fields are somewhere else.
All right.
But now they shifted mainly to the synthetic, which is grown in the labs,
Wow.
which is methamphetamine, which is
That's
amphetamine
even
type
scarier.
substances.
That's even scarier.
Because the difference is that, methamphetamine makes a people very violent. And there are a lot of issues on narco-terrorism, drugs, money, arms. You see, recently there are two things which are alarming. Shifting of these labs in Manipur itself is a very alarming thing. That's why I would call that the chief ministers of all northeastern states to sit down and make a joint task force
Right.
to tackle this issue so that people don't manufacture in their backyards, which is now going to happen in Manipur. which we predicted 10 years back. I did a study on Yaba and presented it in Czechoslovakia and Praha in an international conference.
Okay.
And I said Northeast India is going to be a big havoc for Yaba, which I said if in my AIDS scan, in my newsletter, I published that. It's a published paper. Now we are seeing the results. The same thing is happening now. In Karbi Anglong, you know, the other day it was...
So whatever you had predicted is happening right now.
It's happening right now. And what is more worrying, you know, that precursors, UNODC has said that India produces a large amount of precursors. We are talking of drugs coming from the east.
Okay.
We are forgetting that the precursors going from the west. The labs cannot be working unless these precursors go. So we have to be very careful who is bringing these precursors to these labs.
Okay.
They are manufactured in South India, many of this acetic anhydride for heroin. So it has to be a comprehensive plan. What we found in Punjab was substitution with buprenorphine worked tremendously good. There were about 3,000 to 4,000 daily uptake in Amritsar Medical College.
Oops.
So the similar kind of thing should be done in every district.
So Uttar Punjab was actually real because
Uttar Punjab was
they were
actually
very...
our experience.
Oh, okay.
Uttar Punjab was actually our, you see the movie, you'll find that it is the experience
because
that we had.
people objected to that movie. They said that no, it doesn't happen like that. But then it's actually happening. Now you're telling me this.
It is the truth which I cannot, which I do not want to publicly say. But,
right.
but that is our experience.
But that's the truth.
That's the truth.
That's the truth. Right.
There are a lot of truths also in the Northeast. But I hope in future, it's not a political. I mean, they should be socio-economically also. I mean, we can, you see, a Northeast India Harm Reduction Network. Our organizations of having networks in the entire Northeast, we can work with NEC. Also, we can work with NEDA. We try to find a solution that there is because if the chief ministers of the entire region, they meet and they talk about it and find out and take the help of we can draw a pathway for the future.
I think that, you know what, Dr. Ahmed, that the government should work in tandem with people like you. Because if you notice one thing, viewers, that Dr. Ahmed has a huge timeline of experience, his education, his research on HIV-AIDS and on drugs and narcotics. So he's got a huge, I feel that if the government needs to work, like you were talking about this, you know, this entire Northeast network of chief ministers,
network.
yes, that you want that to happen. But I think people like you should be there so that you can advise, you can show them the way, because you know the the nitty-gritty of this whole story. I think you know it.
No, actually, you know, you look at a broader perspective.
Right.
You look at what is happening in the US, in Colombia, in Mexico. When I was in Mexico, you see, I found the drug cartels. There is a different world. Now, all these governments are spending billions of dollars to control these drug cartels.
Wow.
We are not spending that much. But, you know, only catching drug users or putting them behind bars or convicting them, at the same time, a comprehensive program to take care of people who are using drugs. You see now, there are about 200,000 to 300,000 drug users in Assam itself.
Oh.
And if there are about 200,000 drug users in Assam, what is happening to them during the time of COVID?
Yes, I wanted to ask you this. What is happening to them?
They are inside. You look at the pharmacies.
Okay.
Go to the pharmacies. Mothers are going there. They give me something. My son is crying because he's not getting his drugs. We have to set up crisis centers.
This is actually happening.
Yes.
These mothers are going to the pharmacies?
Pharmacies to look for a substitution. Give us something that my son can... There was a suicide recently.
Oh God.
The boy committed suicide.
This is not even in the news.
No, the boy recently committed suicide because he was not getting drugs. You see, now comprehensive program means also good rehab centers. It's not that you have to entirely depend on the NGOs, how many people they are getting. The government should run up the rehab centers. Incentives should be given to NGOs to bring in clients to those rehab centers.
Okay.
And coordinate, with the government and the incentives given to the NGOs. So the government has to control over the rehab centers and all that. And one thing I would suggest that we need crisis centers also. Where will the drug users go when they are in trouble?
Yes.
And the crisis centers should be within the government, machinery, where people could go in the emergencies, because these people are in emergency. They are patients. They need care. They need. If you don't give them drugs, they are going to physically they are going to be in a lot of harm. So they will do a lot of abuse. So let them be treated, treated properly in the government sector.
Yes, I think that I want to tell you one of my experiences that happened to me many years back. This was when I was not even married. I was in college at that point of time. I knew this young boy who was abusing himself with drugs. And then I approached the parents and I said, why don't you get him into rehab? And if you remember, there's one in Panjabari, right? There's one rehabilitation center in Panjabari. So we took him there. But I'm sorry to say, like you were saying, that we should have good rehab centers with good doctors. That gentleman, that young fellow, actually ran away from the place. And then we had to go hunting, looking for him. Where did he go? Because the doctors had no idea where this patient had gone. So if we are supposed to look after a drug abuser, I think we need to look at that person as a patient that we need to get back onto the mainstream. Not just get him off drugs, but then get him back onto the mainstream so that he cannot abuse himself anymore. Don't you think that's...
You see, some of the best examples in Manipur NGOs have shown, even Nagaland NGOs. Many of the rehab centers are run by the former drug addicts themselves or recovering drug addicts. They run beautiful programs.
Okay.
Because they understand the whole psychology, sociology, how they are to be dealt with. And I think even doctors who are working there, the healthcare providers, they are all sensitized very well. And these are specific drug rehab centers for treatment centers. There are a lot of overdose cases. People die of overdose. We learned the hard way about drug use from the grassroots level, how they used to draw and show us how they procure drugs, how they use it. We had no idea. We learned it from them, from the users themselves. They are the best teachers. And they are the best people who can run de-addiction programs very nicely, successfully.
I think the government should hear this, because then they can think of getting in these people who had abused themselves once. They can become the teachers. They can become the persons who are again going to rehabilitate the drug abusers at present. So I wanted to also ask you one thing. You have traveled a lot. You've been associated with various organizations across the country, across the world, across the globe, and United Nations being one of them. So what are the other organizations you are associated with?
You see, in 1996, I remember Frank Wisner was the US ambassador to India. And realizing that our work, he invited me as a IVLP, International Visitors Leadership Program, as a visiting scientist to study HIV in the US. So there were a lot of institutions which I visited, and including the San Francisco General Hospital Ward 5A, where the first few AIDS cases were treated.
Okay.
And I had a long desire to work with two people, the two discoverers of HIV. One was Professor Robert Gallo, and I had the opportunity to be at the NIH in Maryland, Bethesda. The other person which I wanted to work was with Professor Lou Montagnier, who was the co-discoverer of HIV. And of course, I had the opportunity of being trained on the clinical management of HIV at Hospital Bruxelles in France, in Paris. It's a very large hospital, and Professor Michel Kazatskin was the director, and he taught me hands-on how to do clinical management. At that very time, I had the opportunity of visiting National Pasteur Institute, where Professor Gallo's unit, Professor Lou Montagnier's unit, to study fax scan, fax count on CD4 count for the level of immunity in an HIV person. And Professor Lou Montagnier, you'll be pleased to know, in 2008, he was awarded with the Nobel Prize in Medicine for his discovery of HIV. So subsequently in 2005, actually, Peter Pio, the Under Secretary General of the UN, came down to Guwahati there was a huge conclave of the legislatures. So legislators from all the 7 northeastern states were in Guwahati.
Okay.
And he presented, we had an organization, Northeast India Harm Reduction Network, as I told you. He presented us with a 2005 UN/AIDS award.
Wow.
For our global contribution towards HIV/AIDS.
Super.
And since then, in 2006, I was invited by the President of the UN General Assembly, who gave accreditation to our organization. And since then, about 6 times, I have been to the UN, attending various General Assembly, high-level meeting, political declaration meeting, the Millennium Development Goal to Structural Development Goal meetings, the tuberculosis, drugs, HIV at the UN. So there are many institutions that I've been associated with.
Wow. And of course, I just love to hear this, that you got an award when this gentleman came down here to Guwahati and he gave you this award. And you have been decorated with a lot of awards. So please tell us some of these awards that you have received over the years.
No, I do not want to talk about the awards.
No, but we love to hear it. I mean, I'm sure the viewers would love to hear about these awards.
Well, there were so many recognitions, awards from the lot of visitors we had our program. And one of the best, as I remember, was Michael Carter of the World Bank.
Okay.
The World Bank took keen interest on our work and visited each and every site of the program.
Okay.
And then he invited me to Delhi to make a presentation to all the World Bank heads in the Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, to New Delhi. And I made a presentation on behalf of Michael Carter, but how civil society NGO works on health issues and how it is possible to work in India on health issues. So that was a good recognition from the World Bank. And of course, a lot of UN recognitions were there. And most important, I remember that the European Commission, actually, what happened, it was an international competitive bid. And I did a research work on mother-to-child transmission prevention for the first time. Actually, I learned it in Durban, in South Africa, that 2 drugs, Zidovudin and Nevirapine, can be used from antenatal mothers to reduce the transmission to the children. I thought of going for Nevirapine because Zidovudin for Indian mothers with a bone marrow depression and an average level of hemoglobin of 9 grams per cent, I wanted to use Nevirapine. So with that purpose, there was an international competitive bid from Brussels by European Commission. And out of 600 applicants, there were about 22 independently chosen. Ultimately, about 12 were finally given approvals. So in India, we were given the approval to do the mother-to-child transmission prevention.
Wow.
At that time, Government of India had a Secretary, Professor Mr. J.V.R. Prasad Rao. He really helped me and encouraged me that you should do this project. It was a 5-year project. It was a very successful project. And the the European Commission invited me to make this presentation at Toronto in the international conference. Actually, in that very conference, Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma was also there with me.
Okay.
And he made his presentation on behalf of the government, and I made a presentation on behalf of the civil society.
Okay.
Then, besides the European Commission, there were a lot of UN agencies, and the US government, and the British DFID, then the Netherlands CORDAID. I had a great working relationship with many international organizations. British DFID people also gave me a lot of responsibility to carry out in India.
Your work, your body of work is huge. I want to ask you one thing, Dr. Ahmed, is during this COVID period, how, like your clinic, Monalive Clinic, as I know, and a lot of patients have visited you over a huge, I know this for decades they have been visiting you, anonymously also. Some people have said their names, but how are you treating patients right now? Are you like looking at patients during this COVID time?
Everything is going on virtually.
Okay.
Every day I receive calls for testing.
All right.
Every day I am receiving calls where people who are on antiretroviral drugs, they're missing their doses.
Wow.
They're finding it difficult to collect medicines in the district levels. I've been getting calls from a lot of people on opportunistic infection, especially tuberculosis patients,
All right.
about the drugs, if they miss the drugs, what they're supposed to do, what combinations. And a lot of people are having complications of these drugs.
All right.
So a lot of coordination
I could
also
say
with the
there's
local
a-
pharmacies also.
There's a positive thing happening.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's no other way. I mean, like, we cannot ask people to come to the clinic because transportation is a big issue. And I get calls from throughout the country, actually. I get calls from Andhra Pradesh, I got calls from Haryana, from Gujarat, from people who wants their advice on testing, on they're having on STDs, and the chances of their STDs being infected with also co-infection with HIV. Here I want to bring another issue. You know, HIV doesn't come alone in the Northeast. It has also co-infection with hepatitis B and C.
Okay.
So that was a big issue. You know, blood-borne viruses, they all come together in group. And now with SARS-CoV-2, that is COVID-19, the issues are even getting more complex actually, and we need to do a lot of work virtually, but my computers are all on, so I'm in constant touch with the people that I provide care with, and that's the best we can do.
Wow. I could just go on talking with you on this particular issue, and we have so much to talk about, right? We have so much to discuss about how to get these people back onto the mainstream again. People who have been addicts, who have been abusing themselves, and how we need to get them back. And I'm sure with a person like you who is heading this entire thing. Why I'm saying heading is because your research, your study, your kind of contribution that you have given to the society is immense. And I feel that, you know, whatever these people are trying to do is they are trying to reach out to you, and they are trying to tell you that, you know, we need help. You know, what I have gathered from what you have said, people are contacting you from all across the different parts of the country, and they're trying to tell you that we want to live, we want to get back to the mainstream again. And I think you have a very big contribution. What do you say about that?
No, my whole objective is that the youth of today
Yes.
must be empowered to say no to drugs. And that will happen when right from childhood, the parents, the teachers, the youth groups, the women groups are all empowered to say no to drugs. We have to grow a generation of youth to stay away from drugs. We have to work right from scratch. It's not just having on the 6 June illicit drug trafficking day, and you just
Yes.
have it in a just a symbolic. You know, it's not a symbolic. To deal with drug use every single day is a war. War to drugs is not symbolic. It has to go on every single moment, every single day, because every hour somebody is using drugs. They're motivated to use drugs. There is peer pressure. There are a lot of issues. I'm not going to go into details why they use drugs. There are so many sessions I have had on all this, but ultimately it's the home, the family,
Yes.
the parents, the teachers. They have to have a healthy living at the home itself. If they see their parents drinking and going out, the children, you know, I have seen so many young boys and girls. They're taking into seeing their parents. They themselves are abusing alcohol day in and day out. What teachings do they give it to the children?
Yes.
Young children in the railway tracks all over Assam, you can see that they are sniffing glue.
Yes.
Young boys are sniffing glue.
Yes.
And, you know, the family structure, even the most marginalized population, we have to work. Because you see, I have seen there's so many household workers, ladies, they're complaining that their sons, daughters, they have gone for drugs. These are very, very, marginalized population. They are taking up drugs. So you can see at what extent. So it has to come from
From
the
the
grassroots
family.
level, from the family.
Here, I'd like to tell you something that I had written a couple of days back, and this is about drug abuse in the family. So, the boy that I was talking about, who I had taken to rehab, I will tell you what the father did when he was just in class 9. This young fellow, when his son was in class 9, he gave him. Always, it was a regular affair. Later, the father actually, confessed in front of me that I had actually spoilt my son, because I used to give him money which was more than what is necessary during the late 80s. 2,000 rupees in a boy's pocket in the late 80s was a lot of money. It was a lot of money. And he also gave him a moped bike to go to school when nobody even had a cycle. So that boy was already flaunting his money, and these bad elements, I call them quote unquote bad elements, because they saw that this boy had a lot of money. Okay, how to get this money out of him? So let us give him the drugs and he's going to give us the money. So he got into the trap. He was a good guy. He got into the trap because he saw that, okay, it's a very nice feeling when I take this drug. So he started taking the drug. He started taking fentanyl. Then his mother started telling me that my gold chain has gone missing, money has gone missing, all these things happened. So, after, a couple of years back, this boy passed over because he could not, take it anymore, and he passed over. A couple of years later, his parents passed over as well. So, an entire family destroyed and finished. And right, you were talking about the sniffing of these young boys. So, one day I went up to this little boy in Uzan Bazaar, and I asked him, I said, why are you sniffing? What does your mother say to you when you do this? And he says, my mother is not bothered. She says, go out, beg, give me back 100 rupees. Every day you have to give me 100 rupees, because that is what you have to do. Go and beg. So he was telling me, dos tokata diok, give me a 10 rupee note. So he wants to take that sniff. He wants to feel high because he is not getting his education. He is not going to school. His mother is asking him to beg. So that is the condition. It's like a vicious, cycle.
I said the huge socio-economic conditions are there.
Yes.
So it needs actions right from the grassroots level, as I told you. And parents has to be also taught.
Parents have to be taught not to show off their money.
No, it's not that. Parents have to be also taught how to detect signs and who the peers of the children are. Mm-hmm. Who are they moving around with? What kind of work do they do? And you'll find there are a lot of signs. I have talked in many sessions how parents can detect whether the drugs use has been going on in the children or not. There are so many signs which you should look after. So by policy, the parents, in the parents' meeting, they should also talk about how to detect these kind of scenes in the school. The teachers should also know.
Yes.
And so, and a massive education and awareness everywhere, not symbolically, is in a planned way, and massive planned way. And as I told you, not only in the 8 northeastern states, it is to be pan-India, because drugs going out from the Manipur, it was destined for the rest of the country. Mm-hmm. We cannot remain that we will be safe and the rest of the country suffers. No, it has to be a pan-India effort. And I see that very sporadic response. It has to be a uniform, sustained and efficient and very strong reaction to deal with drug users.
Yes.
And a comprehensive program.
Wow. Amazing. I mean, talking to you, Dr. Ahmed, I feel very positive that we are going towards a good direction. And now that you have connected with the Chief Minister of Assam and you're telling him that we should do this.
No, I have not contacted with.
No, I'm not saying you've contacted you, or you've given him a message that
I want to give him a message.
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, I want to actually see that the activities, the action that he has taken so proactively is so praiseworthy.
Yes.
I would wish that he goes further and continues this in a very positive way in the entire Northeast. He takes the leadership in the Northeast.
Super, super. Thank you so much, Dr. S.I. Ahmed, for coming
Thank
and
you very
spending
much.
your time and telling us and sharing so much of your knowledge with us, so much of your experience with us, and so much of what you have made of your timeline. I mean, I always keep saying timeline, because your timeline is huge. When I went through your profile, I said that I will not be able to read this out. So I'm going to tell all the viewers, if you really do want to know who Dr. S.I. Ahmed is, you must go into his profile, and that is www.apsindia.org. You need to go into that and read his profile. It's huge. It's absolutely huge, and you must go into each and every number. You know, those numbers are huge. I mean, every research that he's done, he's got an impact, that he's made an impact on every one of his projects that he's done. So if you want to know that, you need to go into that website. And like he says, if this particular show is going to be watched by our Honorable Chief Minister of Assam, Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, then I would like to request him to please take our Dr. S.I. Ahmed into the fold, take him in, because he's given a wonderful message that you need to be the leader. Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, you need to be the leader to take up this thing, because you have done extensive work, you've done commendable work in Assam in cracking down this narcotics and drug abuse. So please carry on with this, and we wish you all the best. And to all the viewers, thank you for being a part of the Betty Crom family. Keep watching us. Let's talk with Tinat, Atifa, Masood.